Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome to Episode 3 of StarFlower Journals. Today I have the beautiful Stephanie Gordon with us from Feathered Destiny, and it's an absolute honor to have Stephanie here with us today. So thank you, Stephanie, because how long has it been that we've been trying to get this recorded? Not this podcast, but how long has it been that we've been trying to hook up on Zoom? It's been what, well over a year now?
Just a year. It's okay. Things happen.
Oh, it's
It's
shocking.
okay, honey.
But in all fairness, Stephanie is very busy with the services that she provides, and I'm just very busy running around like a headless chicken. Well, there we go. Let's be very honest here. Anyway, it's a beautiful honor to have Stephanie with us because these podcasts, these Starflower Journals, is literally all about having beautiful individuals from all different walks of life, from all different levels of consciousness, whether it's like from a spiritual perspective, from a life perspective, from just being present perspective, all these beautiful souls I'm inviting here at this moment in time to share their journey to help with the rising of humanity and the consciousness at this moment in time. And it's important. We're redoing this again because somebody forgot to press record. Let's be very honest, right? So Stephanie mentioned in the pre-recording that, and Stephanie, you can butt in here if you want as well, that at this moment in time it's very important that we all share our journeys and that we all share our stories to help others out there that are maybe waking up to who they truly are at this moment in time, because as you mentioned before, and from my experience also, it's rather quite, you can question whether you're losing your mind a little bit. Would you say that would be right, Stephanie, that you'd maybe question? Mm-hmm.
100%.
Mm-hmm. So it's always nice to maybe hear somebody else's story because, you may resonate with Stephanie, but you may not resonate with like April, who I had previously on the podcast, or you may not resonate with me, like my story prior to that. So it's many different stories, many different pieces that come together like a jigsaw puzzle to create one bigger picture. So I'm very honored to have Stephanie here. Thank you, Stephanie. And she's here to share her story and her journey with us. And sorry, Stephanie, I'm going to have to ask you to go back to the beginning again. We're definitely recording this time. Hey, listen, you're just gonna have to get used to me. Everybody's just gonna have to get used to the Kerry. This is what Kerry sometimes can do, okay? So it's all okay. Everything's perfect. Everything is as it should be. And that's what I believe as well. So, Stephanie, tell us a little bit about your childhood. And there's a reason why I'm asking about your childhood, because from my experience and from my understanding and my journey, my childhood held a lot of, what would I say, doors with regards to my pathway and the pathway that I'm on at this moment in time. Those doors weren't very conscious at that time, but going through this conscious journey, I've recognized that quite a lot of things link back to my childhood. So it's always very interesting to hear, how other people's childhood were and maybe how that brought them to, the path that they're on at this moment in time. So the floor is yours, Stephanie. On you go, my darling. You speak away.
Thank you, beautiful. And first of all, there's no just getting used to you. You're beautiful and perfect the way you are, and I love it. So, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. And I'm honored to be a part of this and to know you and so many beautiful souls, that's a part of your space as well. Your beautiful Patreon space. So no, thank you for having me. And yeah, I mean, I would say just a little bit about my childhood to kind of, like you said, it's like little pieces of the jigsaw puzzle. And I believe that we come in with, a specific, there's many goals, right? I don't think and it's very multidimensional too, on a soul level. But when we come into this body, we come in exactly the right time with all of the lessons that we need to learn, from our soul evolution perspective. And a lot of it is healing our ancestral lines and, you know, just it's beyond, sometimes what I think we can even wrap our minds around, like the level of the work we're doing just in these bodies. And so when I came in to this body, I chose a very challenging situation. And it wasn't all bad, right? I mean, there was lots of positives and in that and so much that I learned. But I would say, growing up in a strict religious household and having to, hearing those beliefs,
Mhm.
and then the belief systems around me, it was very challenging because it was a very limiting, constricting energy. So I was fighting that a lot, honestly, especially with my mother, who really wanted to, but I say this from love in my heart and understanding or understanding from where she was coming from, because she really just wanted the best for us. And in her mind, that was the best way, but it was very controlling, very restrictive. So as a free spirit and one that came in, which I didn't know at the time, to break cycles, break patterns, and spread my wings. That was we butt heads a lot. So it was very challenging because and there was a lot of things growing up that as a child that I just didn't understand. And I would ask questions and not really understand the answers. They were from their perspective. It just didn't feel right. And one of the belief systems was really interesting. I don't know why this is coming forward right now, but I'm just going to share it. In the church that I grew up in, was that there would be a time where, if you were good, basically, if you were good and you were a good human being and in the eyes of God, this is how this belief system works. I'm just going to share it. Um, that you would be taken to a better place, and other people would perish, basically, that weren't good, quote unquote good. And so it was a lot of fears, a lot of just all
Mhm.
of that. So when I was about 11 years old, after my father left my mother, that was my that was my out, because it was so restrictive, and because of the free spirit that I was, I didn't even want to be in my body. I remember being a child and thinking, I don't want to be here anymore. Like, this is hard. This is heavy. This is really unpleasant. So, we could classify that as, I don't know if I can say this on YouTube, but I think we all kind of understand what I'm saying.
Mhm.
Um, not basically not wanting to be here. So I would think about
Yeah.
those things,
Yeah.
and huge, huge red flag, right there, like something's wrong, right? Um, so kind of battling those thought processes as well, low self-worth, low self-esteem, that kind of thing. Picked on at school all the times. I was different, and partly because of the church that I was a part of, and being very restricted at home, so I couldn't go and do the things that other kids could do. And so yeah, I was always just different. But even when, as an adult, even being around other adults, in my 20s and so forth. So I still didn't feel like everybody else. I still always felt different. And so I'd have to mold myself so that I would fit in different ways. And even then it didn't work. So that was kind of the theme, of just growing up. So now I was having some experiences growing up from a metaphysical or spiritual perspective, but I didn't understand what they were. So I'd have vivid dreams, and I realize now those were past lives. I realized that um, when I'd close my eyes, I could see other dimensions,
Wow.
other reality, and it wasn't even a clear. It was more like a geometric kind of. Yeah, it was it was bizarre. So there's a lot of things that would happen that and I'd hear footsteps down the hall at night, but nobody was there, stuff like that. And so I just think I was going nuts, right? And I
Yeah.
could never talk about those things with my family ever because it would have been, what? Like you're crazy, kind of thing. So
That
I
in
just
itself,
suppressed a lot of that. Yeah.
that in itself must have been quite, challenging for you. Like, not that I'm putting any words, but how did you feel like experiencing all that you were experiencing and that control that was asserted on you in terms of the religion, and then, not having anyone to turn to, Stephanie? Like, how did that make you feel within yourself? Can you recall?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was lonely, and I always wanted, I have an older sister, she's 6 years older than me. So,
Yay.
and she was kind of in her own world, and she definitely tried to be protective and be there for me as a big sister. But yeah, I think it was just difficult not knowing why I was so scared at night, not knowing why I was hearing those things. Just scary. It was just scary. And so I would just deal with it. And I honestly don't know how I dealt with it. I would just fall asleep eventually, thankfully, and wake up and it was gone and I'd feel better. But yeah, I think it was just really, it was lonely, very
Hmm.
isolating at times.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, beautiful. I'm just feeling that for you as a child. That must have been rather quite challenging. Challenging, but beautiful because, like you said, we come here to break the cycles. We come here to recognize what the cycles are, etc. So we've spoke about your childhood. So how did like the young adulthood, how did that kind of, you spoke about masking, like almost masking yourself as such to fit in with society, which is interesting because I feel that as we go through this journey and we recognize that we're different. We recognize that we have maybe something peculiar about us, but we don't know how to communicate that, or we feel we can't communicate that. So therefore, we suppress and we downpress and we create this persona as such to hide who we truly are. In like as growing up, as young adults, as like we delve into life, and in effect, for me, and I'll speak from my perspective, I lost myself. I didn't know who I was as I carried on throughout life. So what's your story from that point? What's your story from there on in? This is beautiful. I'm
Yeah.
really enjoying this.
Oh, no, thank you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to share this. Yeah, I would say I definitely lost myself. I mean, when my dad decided to leave my mom, I was about 11 years old. I was 11 years old. And so I wasn't able to live with him right away. So I was stuck with my mom, and which was very challenging because she was going through a lot of, her heartbreak with the divorce. And so a lot of that energy, I felt and took on as well. And one day I just decided to run away and go live with my dad. And I fought so hard to not have to go back there because I knew that if I had stayed, I would succeed in no longer being here in this body. Because the depression and the hopelessness and all of that was so heavy for me.
Um,
And counselors, those types of things never worked for me. So unfortunately, it just kind of got worse from there. My dad did a beautiful job of supporting me during this transition period, and um, honored my wishes, to the best of his ability with being able to live with him. And there was some back and forth to my mom's house, and so once that stopped, um, I had a little more freedom. And with that freedom came a lot of very destructive behaviors.
Mm-hmm.
So I got myself into a situation where there was a couple of times that there was one time that I tried to no longer be in this physical vessel. And I believe I was 11 or 12 at the time. I think I was still 11 years old. And so I was placed in like I guess there's no other way to say it, just like a psychiatric kind of
Yeah.
rehabilitation center, basically, and put on a bunch of medications because they thought I was, insert label here. Here's what you're experiencing. Um, and this was where I was inpatient, so I was overnight in these places because my dad didn't have a choice. I was high risk for harming myself. So that was a very heavy space to be in,
Yeah.
and I don't talk about this very often, so it's interesting these memories that are coming forward right now. But yeah, I because of where I'm at now, sometimes it's really easy to just forget some of those pieces, because I've healed them and so forth. But yeah, that was the younger me, in adolescence into teenage years, just trying to find myself and trying to be heard. And I did become a part of a youth group.
Okay.
And this youth group, it was a beautiful opportunity for me, even though, you know, I smoked cigarettes, I did all the stuff you should do, but I wasn't doing anything else. I was just hanging out with this youth group and all my friends, and we were having fun, just innocence, right? And that's what I needed. I needed to be around other kids my age who were having similar challenges in different ways. And so I bonded with a lot of kids there, and I ended up being in like a mentor type of position where I would mentor other kids coming in who were new, and I'd be there for people and um, host meetings and stuff like that. And it was great. Like it was such a great experience for me in that way. And now I see, I used to be like, why did I spend so much of my life in that youth group? Because I was there up until I was 8. I participated in that up until I was 18 years old. So I didn't finish school. I couldn't be bothered. I
Yeah.
got my I got my GED eventually.
We can all put our hands up there. Could be
Yeah. Yeah. My dad tried. He definitely tried. This poor man, I put him through so much. But I was, like I said, I was always just this free spirit. And then also dealing with depression.
Yeah.
I couldn't function in normal, quote unquote, what is normal, right? But normal kind of society. So that worked for me. That kept me out of things that other things that could have been that I could have gotten into that it would have been a lot worse. I was already very destructive towards myself, and so I believe that this youth group, it was kind of like another um, constricting set of belief systems, that I walked into. But I see why I needed to be there because it not only helped me kind of stay out of trouble, but also I realized how much I love helping people and how much joy it brought me to if someone needed me, if they were going through a really hard time. And it wasn't just about needing me. It was just like, oh, like I love I love being able to help people and see them smile and just be a part of that process. I've always loved that. So that was kind of my first taste of not taste, but experience, I should say, of what it looks like to support others based on what I had been through because I knew what they were going through, and I knew that what it feels like to be hopeless and all of that. So yeah, so that kind of brings us up to adulthood.
Adulthood, adulthood.
Adulthood, adulting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And this is like for me, it's when I reached that adulthood. That's when things really started to take off in terms of
Mm.
who I was, the lessons, the people that were like in my life for those lessons. So I'm really curious. This is the exciting bit. No, not that, not that sounded awful. Not that the childhood, and for me, and from listening to your story, Stephanie, like the childhood and the teenagehood, like really quite traumatic as such, like that experience for yourself, that suppression. It's almost like you're rebelling against what society like perceives us all to be. Go to school, go and do this, go, like you're a good person if you go to school and you do all your grades, and you go to church, and you're well behaved individual, and there's what I'm experiencing, maybe you can talk about this as well, like in this day and age and with the children that we have in our lives, especially my two little girls, that there's no understanding. They're quite high frequency children, and there's no understanding as such, right? And they like to put labels on things. So like yourself, when you were into the hospital, they immediately labeled you without really getting to understand what was actually going on, why you were feeling what you were feeling, coming down to your level and seeing your perspective in things. And what I'm seeing in this society is like they heavily trunch on and they like to label beautiful individuals that, maybe are struggling a little bit in society. It's like, oh, well, here's a tablet for this. Like everything always seems to be a tablet will fix it, but it never really does. It just suppresses it. And this is what I've also discovered later on in life as well, like going into the adulthood, which is what I meant by exciting. Sorry if I sounded really disrespectful there. It did
No,
not mean to sound disrespectful.
not at all.
The suppression by tablets, the suppression by society, it kind of like brings forward this catalytic journey as such as we walk into adulthood. So beautiful. That's what I meant by exciting. So do you want to maybe
Yes.
explain, the or talk about your adulthood?
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting because, you don't realize, I mean, as I was always able to look at myself and reflect, and I made a lot of amends, and I did a lot of things that they were basically, I started looking at myself and going within, and up until, I turned 18, I was doing a lot of that. So I was writing out, my experiences and working with my own mentors. They called them counselors at the time, but that's what I that's what they were. They were mentors. And so I think being very self-aware and being able to reflect, I think that's always been there and served me, up until this point, for sure. But I think the challenging part about growing up without self-esteem and confidence and, unresolved trauma is that you still carry those behaviors into adulthood. So going into adulthood, is definitely a lot better than I was, but um, still functioning in some of those ways, right? So in some of those behaviors that were based in trauma, such as, I started drinking heavily. I surrounded myself with people who were kind of where I was, and they weren't even really able to emotionally be there for me or understand me. So I would still find myself in groups where I was too much. I mean, it was one thing when other people were going through things, they weren't too much for me. But
Mhm.
when I was going through really heavy things and still battling depression and and these anxieties and all of that, not knowing, what it's from, really easy to just drink and put band-aids on it in other ways too, and have other behaviors that temporarily, even though they're destructive, and there's always that voice in your head. It's like I always had that, like, yeah, is this a good idea? And I wouldn't listen to it, you
No.
know. So I wasn't really. I mean, when I turned 18, it was interesting when I was 18 that I had some more spiritual experiences. So it wasn't that entire adulthood that I was heavily drinking. It was more like between my 20s and even up to my early 30s. But there was a period of time where I started having prophetic dreams, and not frequently. This
Hmm.
one, I mean, but I had one in particular that it was so intense, and it was with a friend of mine that I had grown up with in that youth group. I hadn't talked to him in years, and in this dream, essentially, he had taken his life, and I was so panicked. And I remember seeing him at another friend. It was so vivid, as well. It was like like he's trying to get my attention. So when I saw him at my other friend's funeral, I had a friend that had, not a close friend, but we grew up together. We spent some time together, and he had OD'd. And um, when I saw this other friend at that friend's funeral, I was just like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad you're okay. I gave him this huge hug. I was just like, oh my gosh, thank goodness. Like I thought something happened to you, and I was so relieved to see him. And then I found out, I don't know if it was a year or two later, but he actually had ended up taking his life. And there were a lot of different stories like that of the youth group that I was a part of, because there were kids there that had, you know, drug abuse problems and things like that. And so that was my first kind of
Oh.
realization that I was having, that I had the ability to have prophetic dreams. And so that was very intense, and I started getting more into angels. And, I
Oh,
know that's how a lot of people
yeah.
really start exploring. Angels are such a beautiful energy, and so safe. And so it makes a lot of sense why they're sort of like the gateway, for a lot of people, and to expand from, if you will. So I was really exploring my spirituality, from 18 on. Things just started to expand. So, but in the midst of that, in the midst of evolving spiritually in my belief systems and understanding, I loved anything having to do with ghosts, like, spirits. Like,
Ghost.
I loved all that stuff.
Mm.
Halloween was my favorite holiday. Like I loved that stuff. So I started diving more into that. And but in the midst of that, still being in my trauma, I felt like my emotions were so intense that it was really easy to want to shut them off with drinking and other behaviors. So that's sort of how adulthood started for me. So
Okay. So, in terms of recognizing that you were having these prophetic dreams, etc., and what made you kind of, not that made you, but what calling did you feel to go in deeper with regards to that? What was the catalyst? Because what I've experienced is normally as we journey through life, we always have these tower moments, and these tower moments are opportunities for us to choose whether to wake up to the reality that we are in at that moment in time. And I'm like, Stephanie, I don't know about you, but I had many tower moments. Like, is she gonna wake up? Is she gonna wake up? Is she gonna wake up? And it's like, nope, nope, she's not gonna do it this time. Nope, she's not gonna do it this time. Until one day they just had enough. And they kind of just like yanked me out of my vessel and went, right, it's time now. Here's the whole perspective. Here's the whole world, whether you like it or not. And I feel that if we come into this world, with a purpose, like majority of us are, I would say, if not all, right? That's just my perspective. Have some sort of reason as to why we're here. And if we're not really remembering that at that moment in time, there's always something that comes into that path for us to choose to wake up to that at that moment. Now, we always have choice. This is what I believe. And you can always choose to wake up to that at that moment in time too. But I do feel that if it's something that you really chose to, your soul, your intuition knows, like what I'm finding really interesting is that the prophetic dreams, your soul was almost like, yeah, 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 this is it, this is it. So it's already that you were all always on that path to choose to wake up at that moment in time. If you know what I mean, to experience the tower moments for you to choose. Am I making sense or am I just rambling rubbish again?
Yes.
No, no, I am making sense. Okay. So
Yeah.
it's very interesting, beautiful souls and their different stories and their journeys in their life, what brought them to that moment where they went down the rabbit hole as such. They delved deeper. They could see everything around them. They could see the clarity with everything around them. And, for me, that was quite a scary time. That was really quite a scary time, and not everybody's going to be the same journey or the same experience, but for me, going like that awakening and seeing everything on a whole, deep breaths, deep breaths. So how was that for you? Like, what was, you don't have to share, but what was the catalyst in your life that made you go, or that you chose to go into the deepest of holes?
Hmm. Thank you for asking. I was really thinking about that. These are good questions because there's so many points in time in this lifetime where things have tried to wake me up, and I get myself into dangerous situations where it's like you've got to stop doing this. You've got to stop doing this, and I think one of the biggest moments for me was this was just a point of synchronicity where how you meet people
Yeah.
along your journey and they just completely shift and ultimately we're responsible for shifting and making these choices ourselves, but I remember getting so much clarity. This woman, beautiful woman, her name's Ann Albers, and she was or still is. She's basically known as a communicator with of angels. So she like a medium, but with angels, right? And beautiful energy, beautiful messages. They always resonated with me, and anyway, so by happenstance, my dad actually got me a reading to go see her. And I was mid-20s at this point, still very much, expanding and having experiences in different ways and trying to understand that my visions weren't something I was just making up, my imagination. Because that's, you've got your logical mind kind of driving the bus
Yeah.
sometimes. And so I had to kind of navigate like what was my intuition and visions versus other things, right? I had a really hard time deciphering that. But anyway, when I went to see her, the session was just, it was so supportive and it was exactly, the information that I needed to know. And I remember, and I don't think it was really the session itself. I think it was more of the energy because I was aligned with my purpose. I was aligned with she was helping me get back on track, so to speak, because I remember how I felt after that and I felt so light and so free. And that's one thing I want to mention to anybody watching this that loves to go talk with other readers, healers, whatever label you want to put on it. It's very important for us to pay attention to how we feel around these individuals. And if you're getting messages of doom and gloom, if you're feeling fearful, if you're feeling, you know, uh, any kind of lower frequency feeling from that, then chances are that's not the energy that you really want to be supporting you. So that was one of the biggest lessons along my journey is pay attention to how you feel when you're listening to something or someone, because our body knows, our heart knows, just because someone presents something really, you know, um, it looks great on the outside, right? Because anybody can do that. Anybody can put on a show, but it's about how does this make me feel? Is this my truth? And we don't all have the same truth. But in this particular situation with her, that was my truth. And the messages that I received was exactly what I needed. And then from there, things just kept expanding. But it was very much of a slower process for me because I went into I would say, a dark night of the soul process, starting in 2008, and it's been a long process for sure.
Yeah, for those that may be watching this, Stephanie, and doesn't really understand what a dark night of the soul is, do you want to maybe touch base on what a dark night of the soul is? What's
Ooh,
your perspective with regards to a dark night? And
yeah.
it's not a
So,
handsome man on a horse, right? Okay, let's put this straight. The dark knight's not a handsome man on a horse. So what is a dark night?
that's a great question. Thank you for having me explain this because yeah, not everybody is going to know what that means. So, yeah, so Dark Night of the Soul for me and how I experienced it, and this may be different for others, but how I experienced it was like the universe going, all right, you've got some shit to look at. You got a lot. We got a lot to look at. We're gonna get you on the fast track to getting through this trauma. So it was a lot of shadow work, a lot of divine synchronicities or interventions that, starting with my daughter. I have two beautiful daughters, my oldest daughter and my youngest daughter. And both of them, I would say, really, really put me on my path where I'm at. So that was kind of the kickoff point. It's like, I'm a mom now
Mhm.
and I better really get it together, you know? Um, and so that was, yeah, that was definitely a big catalyst for that. But it was a lot of having to look at myself and face hard truths, really hard truths. And I still do. I still think that that's just an ongoing process, where we uncover layers
Like,
and more layers and more layers, and that's okay, but it's sometimes it's if we're really not seeing it, our lives and our soul kind of orchestrate this beautiful process to where it's going to make sure our soul's going to make sure, and God, creator, source, whatever label you want to put on that for yourself, that's just what I say God, creator, um that I'm going to stay on my path. And I don't believe that, if even if it takes us a little bit longer, I don't believe that it's lost. I believe that we're always going to get back on our path. We just keep going forward.
yeah.
Did that answer your question?
Yeah, that does. It's beautiful. Which brings me back to
Ooh.
let's go back to, the young adulthood and the teenagehood and the childhood and the teenagehood and the young adulthood where we were masking ourselves, putting different hats on ourselves, to fit in with society and really suppressing everything that we were, to the point that, when we reached that point of awakening, as such as some people may call it, or that point of going, there's something more than what I've always believed or been taught or been shown in terms of my existence on this earth. For me, when I got to that point, it was like, and you can swear on this channel, okay? So if you're easily offended, then maybe don't watch. But, I believe that, it doesn't have to be obscene swearing, but it's a form of authenticity. So I'm just going to be very authentic here. When I got to that point of my awakening, I was like, who the fuck am I? I didn't know who I was. I did not know who I was because I was wearing so many hats and so many masks. I just didn't know who I was. And what was very interesting is I have two girls as well. Their father always said to me, and I'm actually really thankful that he said this because this popped into my head. And he said to me, it's like you wear a mask for like different people. And then I was really defensive and I was like, no, I don't. Like, what do you mean? But now I see what he actually meant. And I was like, whoa, how conscious were you then? And I don't even know if he was aware that he was saying that to me. But now it's like, yeah, I did. Like, I wore a mask in each situation. I wore a mask when I was working. I wore a mask when I was like performing. I wore a mask when I was at home. I wore a mask with certain types of friends. Like, when you get to that point of awakening, it's like you're completely naked. For me, anyway, it's like everything is stripped back. You're naked, you're on the stage, and you've got everybody watching you. And it's so damn uncomfortable when you get to that point. And it's almost like when you go through this consciousness journey, you're naked throughout the whole journey. Like, and it's layers and layers and layers and layers and layers. Like I could be here for like all
Yeah.
day on layers and layers. It's hard going, and some people that it's spiritual and it's all rainbows and unicorns and light and love and ugh. And I'm not saying this to like fear anyone whatsoever. It's not. It's not. It's vomiting. It's shitting. It's crying uncontrollably. I can't even say. Do you know how they've got that video that Scottish word, like Scottish people can't say certain words? I think that's one of them. It's like complete. You think you're going nuts. You just don't know who you are. You don't know who you are anymore. And I wouldn't say it's the easiest journey. It's not for an easy feat. Like if people feel that this consciousness, this spiritual awakening is like, oh, it's just all love and rainbows. No, it's not. There's a lot of work that has to be done within this journey. And if you're ready for it or not, it's going to be presented to you through tests, through challenges, through repeated cycles, through repeated behaviors, through addictions, all the things that you've accumulated in your life kind of, oh, I'm getting goosebumps, kind of like comes forward when you wake up to who you truly are. And it's like, okay, this is coming back in my life, so am I going to choose differently? Am I going to like follow the same behavior, or am I going to choose differently? And what I've experienced is every time that I've chosen differently, there's almost like this expansion within me as a person, as an individual, as a soul, but also an expansion within my energy field as well. So I'm going to stop rabbiting. What's your perspective with regards to that? Like, would you agree? Would you say that that's like something that you've experienced within your path, within like this awakening journey? Like, how would you describe it? How would you describe it, beautiful?
Yeah. I mean, it's so, oh my gosh, there's so many points of, the synchronicities and the little points. I call them little points of awakening. There we go. Because sometimes it's massive. Sometimes it just slaps me in the face.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's very gentle, and I feel like, and I don't know if this is answering your question, but this is where I'm going. So,
Oh, go for it.
I feel like, I was sharing this too in April and I's space on Saturday, our Patreon space, and we were talking about, when if we're on our path, we choose this path, right? We choose this path of awakening because it is a series of choices. Every time, like you said, it's beautifully put, we're given these opportunities to shift so many times over and over and over again. And sometimes we get it really fast. Sometimes it takes us a little bit longer, or sometimes these things are so subconscious that I believe divine intervention steps in. Um, and so our soul and God, creator, insert label here, whatever you're comfortable with. I believe my soul and God, always put me back on the right path, quote unquote, right, but the path that I'm meant to be on. There we go, my soul's path. And sometimes that happens from external events, that I've experienced. Sometimes it's like an inner knowing and realization during meditation, but that it has been such a journey and it has shown up in so many different ways for me. There hasn't been like one way that I get this communication either. It's just sometimes it's vision, sometimes it's sometimes it's in human form,
Yeah.
sometimes it's triggers, sometimes, I mean, there's so many beautiful ways. And numbers, numerology, I love numerology because I feel like numbers are always speaking to it. And that's one of the ways that my soul gets my attention, because they know I'm gonna, oh, okay, I get it, I see it, I think in our human bodies, we have to have it's so helpful when we have experiences in the physical because we need both, right? We need both during those quiet points of reflection, but also those physical experiences where we know we're exactly in the right place at the right time. You get the goosebumps, you get the knowing, and you're like, oh, okay, this is why everything happened that way. Okay. Because you're right. It's not all sunshine and rainbows. And then but we have to have like beautiful moments of
Mhm.
bliss, and of knowing and like expansion and joy because without those opportunities, without those synchronicities, then I think people would just give up, honestly. So there has to be a balance I believe there's a beautiful balance in all of this,
Yeah.
and for some of us, I feel that some of us, may feel like, okay, we were slapped upside the head, all of a sudden we were awake. Others may feel like,
Yeah.
it was a journey. And for me, it was very much so a journey. And then other times I've been smacked upside the head. And 2020, was a big one for me too. I think for a lot of us, it was a big one. And that was a whole other new journey up until this point. But I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for the knowing to see those synchronicities and to appreciate them because I used to not be aware of those things. I was very much in a different kind of reality,
Yeah.
if that makes sense. Like, and then I think too, people don't realize that how powerful they are, and that they're creating their reality in every single moment. And if you have those subconscious uh, belief systems running the show or of trauma that's stuck in our bodies, all that stuff, then we can repeat those cycles, which comes up again. And our bodies have beautiful ways of saying, hey, this is still here. Like, hello, so you're right. Like, there's so many beautiful stages and ways this happens. I don't know if that answered your question, but
No,
that's how
no,
I feel
like it
about it.
does.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a beautiful way. Like you mentioned, the duality. Like, I described it as it's a really tough journey, and it's like, and it is a tough journey, but the more you get, for me anyway, the more it's like an earthworm. The more you dig deep and go into all the holes, you're kind of gonna get to
Yeah.
where you need to go and like find the magic. You're gonna like settle out, you're gonna roll out, you're gonna be good. And there's moments of like pure elation and pure joy and pure connectivity and blah blah blah. But what I've noticed, and maybe you can share a little bit about this as well, because I know you quite into astrology. Correct me if I'm wrong. So you know a little bit about astrology, etc. Like for me, 2020 was that awakening, that like, oh my God, this is what reality is, right? So 2020 was that for a lot of people, on this planet, and I'm getting goosebumps. So a lot of people on this planet. But 2024, which again is a 4 year, if you look at 2020 to 2020, like 40, or the number four,
Yes.
and from my understanding of numerology, number four is meant to be quite like a year of growth, a year of learning, like a year of transition, a real, like it can be perceived as being quite a difficult number to go through, right? Which is, which is really interesting. But not only are we in number four, we're in the year eight, which is also interesting. And the year eight is the year of the dragon, okay? But for me, 2024, on my journey this year has been the awakening to the self. Like
Mm.
really knowing who you are, the good bits, the bad bits, the in between, the upside down, parts that I didn't even know were burping here, parts that I didn't even know, parts that I'd maybe forgotten about, like throughout my life. Like all this has come up, and 2024 has been like, it's been super fast, it's been super quick. And it's like, are we there yet? Like, it feels like I'm that child in the back of the car going, God, Crainer, are we there yet? Because that's what it feels like for me anyway. But I know on an energetic like term and with astrology and the energies that are coming from all different angles at this moment with the planets and the sun and the moon, that that's kind of assisting in things that are going on at this moment in time. So, what's your perspective with that, Stephanie?
Yeah. No, it's I love it so much. Like, yeah, the way you explain that is beautiful because it these energies are assisting us. And I think that there's the perspective I have about numerology, astrology, all of this stuff. These are tools for us, they're supporting us on our journey. And it's not to because we have free will, so these energies and these cycles present themselves and we still make the choice in those moments, what we're going to do with the challenges that are presenting. And what I believe is that when we come into our physical bodies, like how it's been shown to me is there's these I just see these as points of light, okay? And these connections, these points of light connect to these celestial bodies that I feel we contract with. I don't like the word contract, but we agree in this human experience to support each other, right? So I feel like very much so, okay, I'm kind of going way out there, but I feel like, very much so that our planet, our realm, Earth,
Mhm.
whatever you want to label it as, right? Like our energies and our physical bodies are also impacting these other physical bodies and life in other places and so forth, right? So it goes all both ways. But when we come into these physical bodies and we come in with this divine blueprint, this map of all the challenges and things that we're going to all the things that we signed up to heal, all the things that we signed up to embody, and there's so much supportive energies in these charts that I see, um, that it's just this balancing act and this beautiful dance, and so I just see us as like connected to all of these energies, and for everybody it's different. Everybody has a completely unique chart and different lessons they come in to heal, but these celestial energies, whether you believe they're planets or not, that's up for everybody's individual interpretation. But either way, they're energies and they do impact us because I've seen this firsthand so many times in my life. And I was really thinking about this yesterday. It was like, you just can't make this stuff up. You
Mhm.
just can't. Like, for example, Pluto is the most distant planet slash realm that we're connected to in this galaxy, right? And but it's like the planet of transformation, of death, of rebirth, all of that stuff, right? And that Scorpio energy. And so it shifted so it went into Capricorn in
Mhm.
2008. And 2008 was when my dark night of the soul began and another journey for me started,
Okay.
basically.
Interesting.
Um, yeah. And so what was so fascinating is all of this stuff is coming up around, Pluto moving into Aquarius. Now, Capricorn energy is it can be very, depending on, your own blueprint, your own um, soul expressions and what you came here to learn, the Capricorn energy can tend to be very challenging, and in Pluto especially. So I just in my own observations, what I've been studying, what I've been, seeing other people commenting on in some of these like chats is that in 2008 you know, they had started a cycle, and for some people it was a very destructive cycle, which always serves us though, right? Because then it's a death and transformation process. So there's a couple ways to look at this energy. You can either look at it as, and this goes with anything, any celestial energies. It's like you can either be in fear of it. Oh, this is what it's going to do today. No, 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 no. This is how it's here to support us,
Mhm.
and these opportunities for healing come up. And if we miss it, there's other opportunities, right? God, hopefully, like hopefully
Yeah,
we, that's why it's very important in the moment to do our best and because every moment we're given is a precious gift. We don't know.
no,
We don't know when it's our time. And so even though these cycles come around and around, it's like you can't just sit back and, yeah, I'll get it next time. I'm just gonna no. Like the energies are not even allowing us to do that at that point anymore. We used to be able to do that, I think, but not anymore. I
no,
don't personally, for me, I don't feel like it is very uncomfortable, very uncomfortable to choose to not look at something because it gets louder and louder and louder. So whether it's numerology or astrology or what, there's so many ways people are finding information right now in their own knowing, and seeing synchronicities. And I think people, find what works for you. If anybody watching this, if you're feeling like you're too, I remember being really split apart between a lot of different modalities. And so I think it's helpful for people to find what works for them, what vibes with them the most.
yeah, I agree with you there. It's like you mentioned there, it's finding what works for you. And when I was going through, this journey, like in 2020, like you said, 2020 is this like awakening side of things. Like, what was it, 2008? We kind of went into
Mm-hmm.
Capricorn, is that right? So I'd be curious, like for the beautiful souls that are watching just now, if you can reflect back to 2008 and what happened for you in 2008. So what happened for me in 2000? You've got me thinking, going, what happened in 2008? Oh, I'm gonna have to sit with that, Stephanie.
Yeah.
Seemingly, what happened in 2008 is almost like repeating itself at this moment in time to see where I am on a consciousness level, to see if I'm still making the same choices, to see if I've learned from my experiences from then up until now. Would you say that that kind of happens?
Yeah, it does. It happens in layers for me, for sure. It's like if and especially if an energy has been supporting me and I am mm, if I'm not getting it, I'll just say that. And
Yeah.
these energies come back and they get really intense. They can get more intense for us. And when I say these energies, what I'm talking about is like with our soul, like working with these celestial energies that are supporting us. So I am not in any way giving my power away to, you know, how this stuff works, right? It's all about like how it works with my own soul. And so, like, for instance, I just experienced this, and I'm going to bring it back to Pluto because Pluto, when it was starting to move out of Capricorn in September. It's a very slow process. And towards the end of September, I had a very, 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 very massive awakening because it caught me so off guard. It was like whoosh,
Mm-hmm.
another layer, another veil was lifted off very abruptly. And so I feel like as we get to these ends of these cycles, if there's something that we're not seeing yet,
Yeah.
it's gonna get, it can be more abrupt, it can be more intense, you know? Yeah. So yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, but because we have this whole cycle and then it moves through like these, especially these distant planets that take so long to move through a cycle, they move through what's called houses. And in astrology, houses are how the energies show up in our human life. And I love studying this because it's so fascinating to me, you know, all the different areas. And I've seen it, even not knowing, I've seen these energies affect, you know, when I go back and reflect at what was happening at that point. Um, so, so yeah, there's always opportunities, you know, to see something or to heal something. It's just, again, like you said, Carrie, it's like it's a choice. You know, we just have to say, okay, all right, I'm done. This is a little too painful now. Like I think I'm done. I
Yeah.
think I'm gonna actually look at that now, you know. So
It's
yeah.
interesting that you said that Pluto was like transitioning. It started in September, and I'm like looking,
Mhm.
thinking back, going, because I would say since
Yes.
September, it's been like, oh my God, like, is this ever gonna end? Like everything that's coming up, it's like I thought I'd done this work. I thought I healed this. But like you said, it's like layers and awakening and awakening and awakening because I think what happens is people awaken and they think that's it. They think like they awaken to energies, they awaken to angels, they awaken to tarot cards, and they think that's it. And they stick there, right? And that's okay, that's beautiful, that's what's right for them, and absolutely support it. However, what I've experienced on the consciousness journey is you have an awakening, but you have multiple awakenings. You don't just have one. It's like constant evolution and constant growth and constant, it's constant work. It's exhausting, but it's also beautiful. Like, because
Yes.
you really get to know who you are and you really get to connect with who you are because I was so disconnected from the self. So I'm curious now and I'm gonna look into that. But our beautiful Stephanie here, she does astrology, but she also is branching into doing star charts. Is that correct? Am I right in saying that, Stephanie?
Yeah, galactic astrology. Yep.
Yeah, galactic astrology. Now, this is right up my street. So, our beautiful Stephanie has done my chart. She has looked at my chart and she's been dying to share. No, that's so clear, but she's been like, what's the word? I'm trying to think of the right word.
Excited.
Excited, there you go. Excited to share my chart with me. So, what we've agreed to is Stephanie's going to share my chart with me and we're going to record little bits of it to show you her skills, to show you her amazing abilities in, how she can help and how she can like show you other ways of looking at different things and other ways of connecting with the self. So I'm very honored. Thank you, beautiful Stephanie.
Thank
But
you.
she offers many other services as well. So do you want to maybe talk about that a little bit just now? Like the journey has got you to this point and got you to this point of service and how you got there, how that feels for you.
Absolutely. Yeah, I would say within the last 2.5 years was when I was sort of catapulted into pushed myself to stepping up, you know, to what I wanted to do. So right now on my site, I have energy healing services. So that's with dragon energy. So that's with the, you know, land, with your home, with your personal energy as well. So all those services are on my site. And that's been a huge part of my awakening. And I was definitely put through my own boot camp to prepare to offer these services to others because that's what happens, you know, when you raise your hand, be of service, you're going to be put through a lot of tests as well so that I can best support others, you know, and so I understand how that works. It was intense at times, but I'm so grateful for the awareness and my journey with the dragons as well, and how much I've always loved dragons. I've always vibed and resonated with them, but to understand how to work with them, these are the benevolent, beloved dragon energies assisting humanity right now, and so it's an honor to be able to bring that forward and to assist others because that's what it is to me. I don't take it lightly, and like I said, it's just an honor. So I've had some beautiful experiences with that, and people share some wonderful stories from their experience. Some of those are on my website, and then I'm doing coaching. So I do sales. I've been in sales for quite a while in my life, and so I also coach people on sales and business development, and then also just one-to-one coaching, in general of your anybody who's going through life experiences, their spiritual journey, in helping them. I basically consider myself like a mind, body, spirit
Beautiful.
coaching process because I think all those things go hand in hand, and
I agree.
and so those options are on my website as well, and then I'll be adding the astrology and the galactic astrology readings here in
Ooh,
divine timing. So
yeah.
yeah, thank you for the opportunity to
Oh, perfect.
look at your chart. It's been fun. I've learned so much, so much. So
I'm very, very honored and like I'm super excited to hear all about it. Because like with these things, you're like you get really excited, like, oh, what does it say? And because we're like we come here and we've wiped of all our memories. So it's always nice to see like where the energies are in that alignment as such, like on a galactic scale, because I feel myself I'm very galactic. Like I always have been very galactic. I've always been like the nerdy kid that likes Star Wars and like
yep.
yeah. I've always been that kid
Yeah.
and it's like why? Like why? Like I'd rather play with like those sort of things than, play handbags and that's okay. That's absolutely fine. I was just always that type of kid. So I'm really excited to see what that is and, maybe share little bits of it. We're not going to share everything about it because, some things are personal. Oh, yeah, it's okay. But
Yeah.
we'll share little bits of it. We'll share little bits of it. And I'm just really grateful that you're bringing this forward to help people as well. Like, because it can help people. So,
Mhm.
yeah, I'm really,
I
really,
love it.
really
It's such an honor to I mean, I've been studying this for since 2012, I'd say I really started
wow.
diving in. And it's just a lot. And I still feel like I've barely scratched the surface, Carrie. Like it's so vast, it's so massive. There's so many different energies at play too. And so um, but what's really interesting is, you know, just the different layers of it. And so when these chart readings come up, which I'm so excited for, and sometimes it does take me a little while, at this point. So I appreciate everybody's patience with me, as I work through those. But there's so many layers, and so I just trust during these readings that what needs to come through comes through, and sometimes I'm given visions, but also it like helps people. I think what I really love about it is that it gives people an understanding of why they have certain challenges in their life, or why they experience so much growing up, or why they feel so different, or because we don't always know that. And until we can tap into our own intuition and our own knowing, it's and I think this is regardless of whether you're confident in tapping into that or not. Either way, it gives us clarity. I'm finding so many helpful tidbits in my own chart, you know, and I'm still uncovering, and how many times have I looked at my own chart?
Mhm.
Countless times, and so I'm grateful that it does give people, in my experience, clarity. But I also want people to feel empowered because we do come in with all of these beautiful gifts. We do come in with all the tools and all the knowing that we need to navigate this very, very challenging game
Yeah.
of life. And
Ugh.
so yeah, It's so much fun though, because then I go way out there, like woo. Okay, I gotta bring it back. I
Yeah.
will forget. Ask, yeah, people have. I've been late to meetings, not um, not in like anything imperative, but yeah, I've showed up late because I was looking at a chart and I was like, oh, I gotta bring myself back down. So I ground a lot and I have to like really keep myself grounded because wee. I just kind of float out there sometimes.
I think we all do. I think we all have a tendency of doing that, and that's beautiful. But you know,
Yeah.
what I've also experienced as well, the more you do this, the more you know nothing. Like you don't know
Hmm.
anything. It's so, like you said, it's so vast. You could spend years and years and years and you still won't know anything. And I think that's beautiful
Yeah.
because there's just so much out there, that there's so much interconnection and there's so much like layers to it and there's so much multidimensionality. And it's like, how is one human mind meant to remember all of that? And this is where like the intuition and everything comes through, and like the channeling comes through, which I find interesting as well. So yeah, not everything is like from books. Some people, talk about what they feel, etc. And this is something I've learned through my journey as well. Like they serve, books and external things serve a purpose, but you get to that point where you go internally and you start listening to your own soul and your own self, and you start getting your own information and connecting the dots. Maybe that's a discussion for another day. And
Yes.
yeah,
I love that so much.
yeah, that's beautiful. And I'm so, so grateful that you're here, Stephanie. But
Thank
Stephanie,
you.
oh, no, honestly, I'm so grateful. She's a beautiful sister. She has been for many years now. And I'm just very honored that Stephanie and April and many other beautiful souls have agreed to do these podcasts with me because, it's a scary, daunting thing. So thank you, beautiful, for stepping up, for sharing your journey, for sharing your perspectives, your wisdom, and your knowledge, because you don't have to, but you choose to. And I'm very grateful for you doing that. So thank you, beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. It's such an
Oh,
honor and I love you so much. And I'm so happy to have met you in this lifetime.
I
So
know. And like it's beautiful. Like this journey has like brought me beautiful souls like Stephanie and April, and there's Jane, and there's Isa, and there's Fred, and there's Stacy. There's so many beautiful souls. Moira. I can't even name everybody. So everybody that's watching, I love you. Thank you for supporting me. But like from all over the world, There's Billy, like in New Zealand, like everybody. And I'm just so grateful to have you all here. And who would have known 4 years ago I would be here? If you know what I mean. Like 4 years ago, you would be where you are. Can I ask Stephanie, what's one last part in words of wisdom? Any advice for any beautiful soul that's out there walking through their journey at this moment in time, regardless of where they are? Do you have any advice for anybody that's watching right now? Or
absolutely. Thank you. I would say you're never alone. You're never, ever, ever alone, even though you may feel that way, even though you may be going through the darkest of moments of times of you never see, maybe you never see an end to it. But I promise that just keep going, keep putting one foot in front of the other. Know that you're never alone. Your soul, all of your ascended aspects assisting you now. You've got so many in God, Creator, you've got Mother Gaia, all these energies want to support us right now. And so please, don't give up. Please keep going. Just put one foot in front of the other. And, there's always light. Just stay focused on that light at the end of the tunnel. And sometimes it's brighter. Sometimes it's a little bit more difficult to see, but just trust in your heart, that you're right where you need to be, and that you are loved, you are needed. And please, there's a reason why you're here. So please don't forget that. That's what I would say.
It's a beautiful message. Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you, darling. Stephanie's given me all her links to her website and her social media platforms, so that will be in the description. If you feel pulled and you want to like connect with Stephanie, give her a shout, hit her up. Yeah, I would say so. Work
Yeah.
star chart, absolutely, because I'm super excited to get mine. Super excited. It's only taken a year and a half for me to like actually say, Stephanie, I'm ready now. Maybe, just maybe, Stephanie, I haven't been ready to hear it. Maybe I needed to go through everything I needed to go through in order to hear what is within this chart, because I'm curious now. I'm very curious. So,
I'm excited.
yeah, I'm excited as well. I'm excited. Thank you, darling. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's been so much fun.
Yes, it's been epic fun. So, with that being said, I will love and leave yous all to the next episode of StarFlower Journals. Can't even get the words out, but StarFlower Journals, is that what we're calling it? Yeah. Okay. So, until then,
Beautiful.
yeah, have a lovely weekend. Stay conscious. Keep making the right choices for you and you only. And we'll talk to you all soon. Okay. Love you. Bye. Bye.